Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We're on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud. And if you're listening on iTunes right now, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. Very excited to announce some upcoming stand-up dates. I'm recording an album January 6th in Levittown, Long Island, Governor's Comedy Club. So I got a bunch of dates leading up to that album recording. December 11th, I'll be with Comedians at the Compound in Morris Plains, New Jersey at Tiff's Ale House, the Dojo of Comedy. Then I'm headlining the Funny Bone in Hartford, Connecticut, December 12th. December 13th, I'm off to Little Rock, Arkansas to do the Looney Bin out there. And then December 15th and 16th, I'll be back in Dallas, Texas with Aaron Berg and Anthony Cumia doing Hyenas, the club out there, and a bunch of appearances down at the Blaze. And then January 6th, Levittown, New York, Governor's Comedy Club. I'm recording my first album where I'm going to talk about being at the Capitol on the 6th, all the shit I got from that day. So it's going to be pretty great. And I'm just going to be talking about my life and all the material I've written over the past 11 years. So it's a long time coming. I'm very excited to record that album. Quick shout out to our sponsor, Cushy Dreams. That if you guys at all are dealing with any kind of anxiety, Cushy Dreams has really helped me a lot dealing with mine. You can enjoy all the health benefits of CBD without getting high. Cushy Dreams it comes in different indica sativa blends like relax, dream, energy, create, hustle. So if you want to be a little bit more up, a little bit more down before bed, whatever you want, Cushy Dreams has your back. Join the men and women who are sick of vapes and gummies and want to smoke their CBD. Legal in all 50 states, ships anywhere. They are constantly doing lab tests to ensure compliance and purity. You can find all of that on their website, cushydreams.com, Kushy, dreams.com. At checkout, use promo code CMP to get 20% off. I also have a hot sauce that's come out. Of all the merch I thought that I would have to talk about, I never expected a hot sauce in my own name. From Levittsky's Top Shelf, Silk City Hot Sauce has Nightmare. Smooth and sweet with a burst of fire, jalapenos, pear, sweet apple cider, and super hot habanero. This is the Verde sauce that'll awaken your soul. This is Nightmare. Look at this art. How could you not buy it alone from the art? Nightmare, The Great Awakening. This is great. Check it out at Levinsky's topshelf.com. At checkout, use promo code CMP to get a discount. Delicious, guys. Yeah, taste it. Let me know what I taste like. I'm curious. I got it. My bottle is on its way to me. Okay. I'm so excited to have this guy back on the pod. I think he's done it once before, but he's here today. I just finished watching this. I was moved at how good this documentary is. The documentary is called Capital Punishment. It's out next Thursday, Thanksgiving Day. Nick Searcy is the producer, and he has directed some of it. Also directed by Chris Burgard. So happy to have you here today, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little bit hoarse today. I've been doing a lot of publicity for the movie, so forgive my my raspy throat.
I will forgive your horse. Speaking of horse, you were on. This was so exciting. You're on a horse like quite a bit in this documentary. Now, was this all footage you shot while you were out in Montana?
No, actually, we shot that stuff in up in Agua Dulce, California. All that stuff with me on the horse, but it's like weirdly enough, this whole year I've done 3 movies and I've been on a horse in all of them. It's crazy. I don't know. I'm the new Western star or something.
I love it. You're pulling it off. You look great in a cowboy hat, and you've been so busy. You just came off of a month in Montana,
Yeah.
shooting with Gina Carano, my buddy Tyler Fisher,
Yeah.
Samir Armstrong, a couple of other sort of famously canceled actors, which is like very exciting to see. How was that?
It was a really great experience. I mean, what a great group of actors and the crew. And it was also, since it was a non-union, non-SAG picture, we didn't have to do any of that nonsense, you know. So it was a much more relaxing shoot. It was, as one person said to me, it's great not to be outnumbered for once, you know, to be on.
Oh, you mean like having more crew than actors?
No, I mean by having like more conservatives than Democrats.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was following Tyler Fisher's stories the whole time. He was making tons of content while he was out there,
Yeah.
and he said the same thing. It's so nice to just be able to be yourself around people, because like a lot of us, we feel like we can't be ourselves and we can't let our thoughts and feelings be known, and,
Yeah, they let me name my horse Brandon in the movie. Every
that's
time I took
great.
off, I was like, "Let's go, Brandon. Let's go."
Yeah, giddy up. Uh, what? So you and I were both at the Capitol on the 6th. So many other people too. I was there covering the event, doing kind of little interviews. I had been there in November and December to cover these rallies because I felt that the media was unfairly showing them, or basically undercovering them was the reason that I ended up there on the 6th. And I always thought, there might have been about 1,000,000 people there, and after watching, your documentary, so many of other folks said, "Oh, it felt like more like 2,000,000 people were there on that day."
Yeah, I mean, that's they won't release exactly how many when they know. I mean, they have the satellite footage, but they won't release that figure. And almost everybody that we talked to, estimated it at around 2 million. It certainly felt like that. It was more people than I've ever seen in my life.
And so what happened for you, this documentary is so great because it really recounts so many people who were just there, who did not go inside, who did not participate in any shenanigans, and how their lives were basically like ripped from them, ruined. People recounting their businesses were destroyed. I mean, you interview two like 74-year-old twins, these
Yeah.
ladies that look just like my mother.
Yeah.
Oh, is the Rittenhouse case? They're about to announce the Rittenhouse case. Maybe we can pull that up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Maybe can you send me a link, Frank?
Wow. We're live on the air. Wow.
We're alive and it's coming out. Man, it's like it's crazy that they're announcing this on a Friday, almost like they
Yeah.
want people to rage all weekend.
Bet. Yeah. It's I don't trust anything anymore. I mean,
No.
one thing that I learned from making the movie, it's like there's so many things that happened that day that they have not addressed. And like the reason it started was that nothing that I saw on the news matched what I saw that day. I didn't see anything that I saw on the news. I didn't see any of the violence. I didn't see any of that. So, and that's all they showed.
Yes, yeah, and it was interesting because they all right, we're gonna put this up here now. Okay, hold on.
Third count of the information, unknown male. We, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Oh,
As the fourth count of the information,
wow.
Anthony Huber.
Well, that's only one count.
Jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the
Wow.
fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Wow.
Mr. Jury, are these your unanimous verdicts?
Oh, look at him. Look at
Anyone who does
him.
not agree with the verdicts as read.
Look at him. Oh, God.
wish the jury
He's
pulled it
crying. He's
Good.
hugging
Okay,
his
folks,
lawyer.
the job is done,
Look
and,
at
I thought
him.
when it was taking so long, it was going to be bad news,
Just about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, God. They just announced the verdict. He is not guilty, I think, on all
2 weeks and 2 days.
three. He's
This is
shaking.
3 weeks.
Mhm.
You were a wonderful jury to work with.
Oh, my God. This poor kid.
And
What
they put him through the ringer over politics. 17-year-old kid. This trial should never have happened. Oh.
No. He absolutely was put through this to be made an example of, to strike fear into Americans who want to protect themselves and their property. And I feel like it was delayed this long because the jury was petrified of
Right. Yeah.
coming out with this and saying not guilty. And, they just yesterday we heard an MSNBC van was trailing the jury bus.
Yeah.
I too would be very afraid to be on this jury and to have my face and name out there.
Yeah. And people trying to find out who you are. People trying
Yeah.
to track you down so they can threaten you and torture you. It's unbelievable that this is that this kind of thing happens in America, but there's a lot going on these days that shouldn't be.
Yeah, and he's not guilty on all 5 counts. I didn't realize it was 5 counts.
Yeah. Wow.
But good for him and good for the jury. And this is, I'm sure there's going to be mayhem this weekend,
Sure.
but justice has been served.
You know.
And, this he's not going to be made an example of.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure he's going to have, the kid already has PTSD from living through this experience. And you can tell if you watch the trial, like he breaks down at a couple points, just when he was trying to recount everything that happened.
Yeah.
So he's going to have some PTSD just from living through this.
Absolutely.
But it's good to see that that mob rule is not going to dictate law and not going to dictate trial results.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of sad that I'm surprised. I mean,
you're
it
surprised.
was an obvious case but I think the attack was not necessarily on him. It was on self-defense. They want unable to defend yourself, so that the only source of your protection is the government, and then you have to do whatever they say.
Yeah, and this actually really ties into, I think, why this documentary is so important, because and I didn't realize this because we were there, our phones were jammed. I remember I was trying to live tweet the event. The only thing I was able to get out was a little bit of video when I said on my way to the Capitol, walking there, after we had heard a little bit of Trump's speech. And I was with my friend Wristflex. She's this little 100-pound girl. She's freezing her ass off. We had been standing out there since like 7 or 8 in the morning. And so finally it was like 12:30 or something. So she's like, we got the next spot on our plan, on our itinerary that was made public, right? When the speakers would be speaking, the Capitol was always a planned march point, 1 p.m. Everyone was going to go over there. So we started walking over there. And the only bit of video that I was able to tweet out was a little bit of like, marching over to the Capitol. And what happened that day and the days afterwards. You talk about how communities have been weaponized against anyone that was involved in the 6, whether you were inside, outside. It's almost like the government they had communities do their bidding by putting out a witch hunt, by having billboards and banners up in the weeks following the 6, basically getting neighbors to rat on neighbors.
Yeah.
And I noticed just in my small like comedy community, meaning essentially high school, but what I definitely had like a witch hunt out for me after the 6. I still have people tagging FBI, come get your girl, on my tweets, on my show promos. So just to watch your documentary, Nick, and see what other folks went through, it's like quite similar. Like obviously I didn't, thank God, have to like shut down a business. The FBI didn't come to my house.
Yeah.
But there's similarities in that whatever community you were in, they were made to come after you just from being in DC on the 6th.
Yeah. I mean, in my little experience, I went to North Carolina right after the 6th. I had a previously planned trip, and like, I didn't really, I couldn't believe what I was seeing on the news because it looked nothing like what had happened to me. And then during that week, at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, I got a call from my agent, and I'm like, I never hear from my agent. Why is my agent calling me? And he said, he calls me up and he says, well, did you go in the Capitol? I said, no. Why? He said, there's a casting director here that is spreading around a picture of you saying that Nick Searcy went into the Capitol. He's an insurrectionist. And I looked at the picture. I said, send me the picture. I said, look, I am way better looking than that guy. That's not me. And I said, who was the casting director? And he told me, and it was an old friend of mine. It was somebody I'd known for 30 years. And she had my email address. She could have called me and just said, is that you? But no, it's like they weaponize citizens against each other. That's their goal. And that's what has been the point of the conditioning that has proceeded through academia and media and all that stuff, feeding constantly this idea, we have to protect you from those awful people that disagree with you because they're racist or they're white supremacist or whatever the label is. And so you have this whole sector of the community, and it's really large, that are perfectly willing to act like Soviet informants in the 30s, turning in their neighbors for saying something mean about Stalin.
Oh yeah, I mean, it almost sounds like, and you hear people will hear this and go, "Oh, they're exaggerating,"
Yeah.
But when you and you had you have a lot of big stars in this documentary, Nick. Ian Smith, who everyone knows,
Yeah.
owner of the Atellus Gym out in Belmar, New Jersey, who has been fighting since like day one of the lockdowns, keeping his gym open, not charging memberships, like a real voice. Through all of this, Jack Posobiec's in it, Millie Weaver. You interview Aaron Babbitt, the husband of Ashley Babbitt, and like I was in tears watching him. Just the passion he still has for his country, the love he still has for his wife, and what was it like sitting down with Aaron Babbitt?
What we really wanted to do when we started the movie, it's like Ashley Babbitt has been vilified in the media.
Oh, absolutely.
Paris. And so we wanted to, show you who she really was and humanize her, because the media and everybody has been demonizing her ever since it happened. And just to see Aaron have to kind of relive that for us and really tell us about exactly what he went through on the day. It's heartbreaking and it's infuriating. It's no one. I could not believe that this was the America that I was born into. It's just it is so antithetical to everything that I was taught that America was about. What is happening, to the injustices that are happening to these people. And you see the people that we interviewed, these are all people that have never been arrested for anything before in their lives. And they had their doors broken down like they were drug cartel members. And the only explanation for that is that the government is intentionally trying to terrorize private citizens that hold a different opinion than they do.
Absolutely. It's to terrorize the citizens, and it's to terrorize the neighbors, to be like, look you're basically publicly shamed in your neighborhood, in your community, for having a different opinion and expressing it. And everybody, like, take note, because this is going to happen to you too. And I really can't wait for people to see this documentary, because like, and you're watching Aaron Babbitt, who's a tough guy. I don't know if he served in the military as well, but I know Ashley did.
Yeah, they both did.
So they're both veterans. He's a tough guy, and he's breaking down, recounting, like, he basically watched his wife die on television. Folks are like, he never got any kind of a call. So that's truly horrible. And you'll never see that in the mainstream media. You'll never see this guy tell his side of the story. So I'm sure he was grateful to be able to get that out with you.
Yeah, it was hard for him. I mean, another couple of things that are in the movie that I haven't really seen anywhere else is that the fact that the break-in started before Trump finished his speech. That the break at about 12:45, and Trump didn't shut up until like 1 o'clock. So the people that were listening to Trump speak couldn't have been the ones that were breaking in. The speech wasn't being broadcast. They couldn't be listening to it anywhere.
He was supposed to start speaking at 11. He didn't get on until closer to 12.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. And there are so many counts of people, being made aware of break-ins before he was done speaking. So it's like any real fan of Trump's was going to be still listening or not quite on their way yet.
Yeah.
Still walking.
And the other thing that really struck me when we were making it is that, the people that were listening to the speech couldn't have made it over there. And also what was going on in the Capitol building was what we wanted to happen. They were in there. The people that came to Washington that day wanted senators to object to the vote so that we could get another 10 days. Well, that's what was happening. Ted Cruz was doing it. Josh Hawley was doing it. And somebody made the point that I really hadn't thought of, is like, why would we want to stop that?
Right.
The Trump voters did not want to stop that process. And what happened? They break in, they let everybody in. Everybody claims it's the worst thing that ever happened, and they stop the debate. They shut it down, said, let's certify the election. These people are terrorists, and we're the exact opposite of what we came to Washington was achieved by people breaking into the White House. And so that's why I concluded that most of that was not us.
Yeah, most people were there to shine a light on what was happening in the building, to bring attention to, what was happening that day, not to stop what was going on.
And that's one of the men in the movie, Coy Griffin. That's one of his charges, trying to disrupt an official proceeding. And Coy said that I wanted the official proceeding. That's not what I was there to do.
And let's see, who else did you have on here? Cordy Williams, Pastor Greg Locke, and
Simone Gold is kind of a big star in it.
Yes, yeah. Oh, she was that sweet woman.
Yeah.
And just like hearing her recount, exactly. The FBI used this same intimidation tactic to beat down. They broke through kind of you hear the same story. FBI, they say open up, they give you a minute to get to your door before they break it down.
Yeah.
They were arrested. There were a couple of guys featured in the documentary who had like young girls, like 13-year-old daughters. Each of them were put in handcuffs.
Yeah. And why? Why do you handcuff a 13-year-old girl unless the point is to terrorize? There's no reason for it.
At what point, Nick, did you realize I need to make a documentary of this day? I need to, get as much information as I can together.
Well, we were there and we shot some footage, but we didn't go there with the intention of making a movie. We were just sort of like documenting the day. And then after all of it happened, we started to think about doing it. My initial idea was like, I saw it as an attack on free speech. So I was going to make the movie, a little bit more of a general topic of the trouble with free speech was the original title. But the more we shot and the more we talked to people, it became apparent that the real heart of the movie is what's happening to these decent, honorable American citizens who went to Washington for no other reason than to make their voice heard. And so that's when it kind of began to evolve more into a movie about the victims of the FBI. And for a while there, I wanted to call it The Real Housewives of the Insurrection.
That's
a great title.
That is a great title.
And it kind of fits because it really is, they are taking Real Housewives and insisting that they are insurrectionists.
Yeah. And I saw Enrique Tarrio is featured in the documentary, and like people have mixed feelings on Enrique. I've heard some people say like over the months, like, oh, great guy. He got a lot of attention. Oh, like, how can anybody say the Proud Boys are a white supremacist group when the leader Enrique Tarrio is Cuban, so he got a lot of positive attention for that. And then I also had heard people say, oh, he's a Fed, he's compromised. What was your, what did you take away from, working with him or interviewing him for the doc?
I enjoyed talking to him. He showed us his whole facility, which basically amounts to a few offices where they make T-shirts, and stuff. I mean, it didn't look like some crazed, violent group. And I have heard the same things. I don't know. I mean, that kind of wasn't my area of interest. I just sort of wanted to talk to him about how the Proud Boys have been treated as opposed to the BLM Antifa people have been treated and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, when you look at it, it really is enough to make you nuts. All of 2020 was constant rioting, looting, murders going on by BLM.
Yeah.
So much footage, and yet they treat the 6th like it was worse than all of that put together. It makes you as someone who was there, as and there were 1 million, probably 2 million people there that day. As anyone who was there knows, It was, and I got in trouble for saying this to Megyn Kelly. I said it was a pretty chill day. And then, of course, they isolate that and put that in articles. Chrissie Mayr says January 6th was pretty chill. And then, of course, everyone who wasn't there, who all they saw is the very selective, what the media wants you to see, all the worst footage and photos. Tell me how wrong. It's like, I was there. Like, my experience of it was that it was pretty chill. There were people praying. There was a lot of singing. There were a lot of families and kids and dogs in costumes. You know, I have so many pictures still in my phone of like dogs in like Trump hats and shirts.
Yeah.
It was it was more peaceful than the given day in BLM Antifa for 2020.
Yeah, and that's what I saw too. And you know, I was in the back of the Capitol between the Capitol building and the Supreme Court, and they had these barricades set up back there. And everybody was standing behind the barricades. And then once in a while, somebody would go up to the front, dressed all in black, and start raising hell at the police and yelling at them and screaming at them. And everybody around me would start going, "Hey, that's not us. We don't do that. That's not MAGA. That's not us," you know? And that went on for a while. And then I saw the police remove the barricades and motion people in. And that's when they went up on the steps, and, you know, they just were on the steps singing. Most of the time they were singing "We're Not Going to Take It," because there was a lady there carrying around a jam box playing that on a loop. And I took a lot of pictures and a lot of footage that day, but then after what happened, I didn't put any of them up.
Same.
I was afraid that, like,
me too.
Not for me, but like they were arresting people that they just
right.
saw pictures, you know. So I didn't want to put any pictures up that might incriminate somebody behind me or make them a target of the FBI.
Right. Because people have been losing their jobs just for being there.
Yeah. And, you know, that's the scariest thing. I think that's the point. They want to intimidate and terrorize. And that's why they're lying about it. That's why they only show you the violent parts. You know, there's no news program that ever said that it was a mostly peaceful crowd. There were 2 million people there. Of course it was mostly peaceful, or we'd all be dead, you know?
You would think, like, you know, that the average mainstream media news crew could have got there by like what, 9 a.m., 10 a.m. There should have been day-long massive coverage of this event. And, you know, I wasn't home watching the TV that day. But that was a very interesting point that came up in your documentary. Like they were not covering this event. They kind of waited to show just the most incriminating footage that would make anyone who's there look in the worst possible light.
Yeah. They didn't cover the major part of the event because that's not the story they wanted to tell. And the fact that they weren't there on one of the biggest rallies of the year, on one of the biggest days of the year, that's kind of conspiracy theory stuff to me. It's like, okay, if they weren't there, then they knew what they wanted to happen, and they were only going to show that.
Yeah, it's hard to call it conspiracy theory when there's just so much pointing to, you know, nefarious involvement here. You know, that, and you do a really good job in the documentary of illuminating that. You know, showing different. Because I saw too. I saw Antifa there. I saw people like not dressed like patriots, and then you show footage of people changing behind a bush, and then they get, you know, someone that's shooting them talks to them, and they're very aggressive and they're very hostile. And it's like, if you are just changing because you got something on you, you wouldn't be angry and defensive like that. You'd be like, oh yeah, it's cold, I'm throwing on another sweatshirt or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, I was joking with somebody. You can almost tell who's you know, on the right side and on the wrong side just by whether or not they're wearing a mask.
yes. Oh yeah.
We're conservatives. We want to kill grandma. We don't care about masks.
Of course. Yeah. We love oxygen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited for people to see this because it at least can start to poke holes in the mainstream narrative and show the humanity of the people who were there that day, which is most of the people. You know what I mean? Like, what, 600 people or so were arrested or were inside the building, and there were maybe 2 million people there. That's a very small percentage. And
a lot of those people, like I said, they weren't even there to protest. They were there to cause violence. You know, that's what they came for. and they didn't come to help the process along at all. They were there to disrupt it.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you intended for this to start out to be like a free speech documentary, and there's plenty of that remained in the documentary. You know, you
Sure,
compare.
it's still about free speech.
Yeah.
Don't call it that.
Yeah, and the comparisons that are made, you know, between like online censorship, that they're basically essential like digital gulags. It's like you make a lot of folks in the film make a very good case for that. And I forget the gentleman you were talking to, but he said, you know, Jews were put into ghettos to quiet their voices, and this is exactly what's going on with anybody who differs from the left and the mainstream narrative. It's like you're censored, you're kicked off Facebook, you lose your Twitter, you lose your Instagram account.
Yeah, that's Evan Sayet who said that. He's a stand-up for a long time, and the author now. He wrote a book called The Woke Supremacy. And one of the other points that he said that didn't make it into the film, it's a kind of a continuation of that point. He said, you know, building concentration camps and ovens, that's very expensive. The physical machinery of that is difficult. And, you know, it'd be harder to hide now with all the cell phones. So now they don't really go to the trouble of actually murdering you and then having to dispose of your body. What they do now is just erase you. They just digitally remove your voice and take you off of every platform so that you can't be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jack Posobiec, who is in the film, does a really good job of pointing out similarities between, you know, like color revolutions that have happened in other countries, that they use all the same moves, and these are not new moves. These are decades old tactics that we see, but we don't realize it's the same thing that's happening here in this country, because like a lot of us, we're lucky enough that we haven't had to go through this in our lifetimes. And a lot of us all of our families live in this country. So we don't have like a buddy in Venezuela, a buddy in Cuba. We don't know. A lot of us don't have families who live in countries where this took place. But it's the same moves, amplifying racial tension, the specific intentional strategic creating of division in what was a very unified country.
Yeah. And, you know, we talk about that in the film. Patrick Berge, you know, one of the guys who developed this face recognition software back in the early 2000s. And it was designed to be used to identify foreign enemies, terrorists, you know. But the Obama administration began using it on American citizens. And he talks about how what they do is they infiltrate both sides. They have both sides, people on both sides, and they try to get us to fight with each other. And that's what this is all about. They're demonizing one set of citizens. Look at those awful unvaccinated people over there. We've got to separate them from society. Look at those awful people that support the Republican. We've got to separate them from society. And that's the whole point.
Yeah. And we forget, and they want us to forget, that the government is supposed to be held accountable by the public.
Yeah.
And that showing, you know, expressing your voice in a form of dissent, gathering at the Capitol, completely legal, fine thing to do, and in fact has been applauded when the other side does it. You know, when they had the Pussy Hat crew in there a couple of years ago, Pelosi called it, oh, look at all these people participating in democracy. But when the wrong side does it, we're insurrectionists. We deserve to be fired, shamed. We deserve to have our friends turn our backs on us.
Mm-hmm.
It's really disgusting.
Yeah, and it's shocking. I mean, here in California, it's even more shocking because I'm so outnumbered, you know. But
I feel that. I'm in New York still, so it's like,
I was talking to Tyler about that. It's like, you know, they basically are destroying these great cities. They are tearing them down, making them miserable and unlivable, and they don't see it. They don't understand why it's happening. It's bizarre.
There was someone in the documentary who said that, like when the FBI came to his house, he had a box of like pocket constitutions, and they actually took one out and like took photos of this, like this was evidence, like this was drug paraphernalia. Pocket constitutions.
Obviously subversive material that he should not be spreading. The Constitution of the United States. Yeah, that's evidence that you're a right-wing nut if you believe in the Constitution.
Whew. What did you learn in the process of making this documentary?
You know, that really was shocking to just really discover what the FBI was actually doing. I mean, you hear about this stuff and it, really they did that, but it's just a different feeling to hear it from the person that they did it to. And that was the most surprising thing to me, is just the blatant disregard of the law and the way these people were treated. And the other thing that I learned, or that became a question, is why these people? It seems so selective and random. Why are they picking on these people and not me? I did
Right.
I did the same thing. I went there, I wait to, camera around and sang a few songs, and it's like, why didn't they come after me?
Isn't that funny? They didn't
Yeah.
come after me either. And it's like, and it's so funny because you said something that I felt similarly to, like, yeah, I post all my show dates. They're public. Would love to see some FBI at some of my comedy shows. Like, I'll buy you a drink. Like, come
Right.
on, let's do it. And it's like, maybe they don't pick certain people because of who they are.
Maybe.
And,
I mean, I kept saying while we were shooting, it's like, we're looking for an ending to the movie, and I go, well, if the FBI comes and gets me, that'd be a great ending, But it hasn't happened yet. But I don't know. Maybe when we release the movie on Thanksgiving Day, that's when they'll go, all right, that's enough out of that guy. Let's get him.
yeah. And to hear you talk to people who that are in the doc that have served in the FBI, that have served in the government, and they're able to verify, like, yeah, this is like legit psychological warfare that is going on. Nothing, it's all very intentional. The infiltration on both sides to just completely coordinate to have happen exactly what they want to have happen. And
Yeah, and in talking to these people, a lot of them have these court-appointed attorneys, because a lot of the people that they have come after are not wealthy people, and it's bankrupting them. They're losing their homes and everything, and they have these court-appointed attorneys that are basically working for the government. They're not really working for their clients. They're in there trying to get them, here, just plead guilty to this one felony, and we'll drop everything else. If you go to trial, you might face 30 years, but if you just take this one felony, you're going to get 6 months, and then you'll get on with your life. But, since you're a felon, you won't be able to vote, and you won't be able to own a
and
firearm.
that's why you interviewed so many people that said such and such a person did not decline the plea deal. That means they didn't, settle on just taking one count or something.
And a lot of those people that are able to do that are able to do that because they have found some means of support. And a lot of the defendants in this purge that the government is doing, there isn't a fund set up to help these people. A lot of the people that are supposedly on our side won't put their money where their mouth is because they're afraid to be associated with the insurrection. So a lot of these people are being hung out to dry with nobody really representing their interests.
And I appreciate how you kind of walk through, mainstream media and has gotten, just regular people to call Trump supporters, anybody who's at the six, all these horrible names, Nazis, right? It feels like everybody's a Nazi at this point. But in the documentary, you do kind of walk us through how, BLM and Antifa truly do act more like the brown shirts and like the KKK than anybody who's a conservative or a Trump supporter.
Just look at the Rittenhouse trial. I mean, they're on the steps of that building trying to intimidate the jury. That's what they're there doing. Why are these people not cleared out? Why don't the police come in and go, you can't do this? You are jury tampering.
Yeah.
It's a total double standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am just blown away at how little police was there on that day.
Yeah.
I had people making me out like I'm this horrible like vigilante or whatever. And it's like, I don't think I stepped over one barricade. I don't think I jumped, you know what I mean? Like, I went on top of a small like construction office just to get, like, there were a bunch of media guys up there just to get a better shot of the crowd.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that seems to be like an okay thing to do. I remember at one point I was like, oh, should I climb the wall?
Yeah.
There was all these guys climbing this wall. And I was like, oh, I was thinking like back to like, oh, my Spartan races. I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And like, I'm just glad I didn't because, who knows? Maybe I would have been like on the front page of the Post, like
Yeah.
comedian falls
Crazy
off wall.
right-wing
Yeah.
comedian climbs wall. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, but, I'm excited for this to come out, Nick. It's coming out next week on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Where can people watch this? Can they pre-order it anywhere?
Yes, you can pre-order it right now, capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. You can place your order now and then download it. It'll become available for download Thanksgiving Day. And the trailer's there on the website, so you can get a flavor of the film. And I encourage everybody to buy the film. You'll like the film, but this is a new way of delivering movies to the audience as well. We couldn't go through the traditional gatekeepers and get on a streaming service because they hate us. So we have to build our own thing and deliver it directly to the audience. And if we can make this successful, it would then become a model for future films that are like this, that the mainstream media won't touch with a 10-foot pole. I'll be surprised if anybody even acknowledges that it exists in the left media. That's usually their strategy with films that are powerful. They just pretend they aren't there and they don't say anything about them.
Exactly. I'm going to play this trailer for you guys so you can see just a flavor of this great documentary.
This is treason.
Where's Officer, I can't breathe. I can't hear. And hey, man.
"41 months that guy got."
Well, yeah. Yep. He was just
crazy.
41 months in prison. Yeah.
I'm Nick Searcy. On January 6, 2021, I went to Washington, D.C., along with multitudes of other Americans because we believed that the election was stolen. I saw with my own eyes what happened that day. And what they show you on the media doesn't tell half the story.
Here's the Capitol, and here's people going in there. They didn't show
what I was standing
all
on.
Of this out here.
Did I tell you I have claustrophobia?
I saw people of all colors, races, creeds, Asian Americans for Trump, blacks for Trump. I even saw a guy wearing a shirt that said "Fags for Trump." And since I'm from California, I knew that guy.
We're from Iowa.
Nashville, Tennessee.
And I'm here standing with my fellow patriots. We all standing for America.
Despite what the media tells you, boots on ground definitely say something different. There is a sea of nothing but red, white, and blue patriots.
These are damn working people. They want their country back.
We're marching for the Constitution. We're not. It ain't really about Trump. It's about us now. They're attacking us, and we're tired of it.
We had a foreign attack, and they had domestic support. This is about individual liberty. We don't believe the media. We don't believe you. We have no faith in our institutions.
The FBI is now being sent out by Joe Biden to punish people.
We're at war. They're hunting down Trump supporters like dogs.
You say that again. We're at war.
147 days since my wife was murdered, executed.
The FBI, you have a federal search warrant for the property.
I step out, I have red dots all over my chest.
They broke the door down. Hands up, put your hands on the wall, hands up.
I was in jail for 4 straight days. I kept banging on the door saying, I have never had a phone call.
The 6th was all deception.
The level of sophistication and tactic is immense.
Oh, I recognize you from Portland. I've seen people from Portland here. Antifa.
I was paid to pretend to protest.
We need to come together as Americans again and remember why we started this country.
An insurrection without arms? What are they talking about? And why are they lying?
Wow, Nick, I got chills. I got chills when you did the wide shot of
Oh yeah.
everybody.
Well, the first time I saw that, I did too. I mean, when we found that, we bought that footage from somebody that was there and shot it, and that's the first time I've ever seen that. And that was never shown on the media. The size of that crowd has never been shown, and I agree. It's shocking.
Yeah, that must have been from the perspective of like on top of the scaffolding, because it showed that little construction office like that I was on top of there too, because I saw I was like, oh, you have a shot in there that is like just like one of the shots that I got.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that person is standing on top of the scaffolding where they did that huge flag drop, and then people are singing the Star Spangled Banner. And I remember like next to me there was so the guy that worked inside of that little construction office, like he was there, and it was open, and like people were going inside the office charging their phones, getting hot cocoa, getting like heating pads for their hands because it was so cold that day. And it was interesting because the construction guy, like he didn't seemed panicked. He was just sort of like humored by everyone being there. He wasn't like a guy that was like for the state or whatever. He's just a guy, just a construction worker. And he was like, when we were watching them drop the flag, he's like, if the wind kicks in at a certain, angle, that whole scaffolding could collapse. And we were like, oh my God, like, thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah.
He was explaining to us that they were, that the inauguration was going to be like a private event. It was only going to be like a limited number of seats for people that were going to come. So it was interesting getting that point of view from a guy who was like working on the premises.
Yeah.
Also a really just cool guy, and like, handing out hot chocolate and hot pads. And there must have been like 20 people in that little construction office just charging their phones and like warming up. And
that the camaraderie of the day, is part of the story that they just leave out. I mean, it was really a nice crowd.
The nicest people, Nick. And I'm doing like, man on the street footage and interviewing people, and everybody who came up to me to talk, like, I'm not with anybody. Like, who knows if I have a small channel, and they're like, no, I want to talk to you. I have family from Venezuela or Cuba. We see the signs of communism sinking in. We did not come here to America to live in the same shit that we left.
Right.
And those are the people who were the most concerned and passionate. The people who had lived through it before.
I want to do something, everybody's always asking me, what do you want to do next? I said, I want to do a series called Coming to America about people just like that, because they appreciate this country, because they know what oppression really is. And they come here and they go, I don't know what everybody's bitching about.
Yeah. And they're some of the most passionate people at the 6th were like Chinese people speaking out about the CCP, like very passionate, and like, a lot of them like couldn't speak like the best English, which I know can make somebody anxious or, nervous about, public speaking, but they were so passionate. They had to get their message out, handing out pamphlets.
There's a lady in the movie who's kind of broken English. She says, Chinese people are good. Chinese government is bad.
Yeah, CCP, bad. I got a super chat here from Matthew Hammond. How did Justified remain such a well-written show where characters did not do something that was completely antithetical to their character development? How did you get Rush Limbaugh on the radio during that stakeout?
Well, the writers were very talented on that show. And that one thing that they did was, after the first season, they started just sending a writer to the set with us, because Oliphant would rewrite everything and I'd make up half my lines. So they just wanted to have a writer there to we were out of control, and they wanted to at least
Here's
the actors were really encouraged to stay true to their character. And the Rush Limbaugh thing came about because Rush Limbaugh announced that he was a fan of Justified, and that's what ended up. His brother called me and said, "You want to come on the show?" Because I knew his brother, and So I did an interview on the show. The writers heard me do the interview, and they the next season they wrote that scene. I didn't even tell them to. They wrote that scene where I'm listening to Rush on the radio.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And this was another one from Matthew. Justified was such an amazing show. It was the first show I watched where Southerners were not denigrated.
Yeah, well, I think that's that's good on the writers, and it's also because I'm from the South. Walton Goggins is from the South. Joel Carter's from Atlanta. A lot of real Southerners were in the show, and so we kind of like wouldn't let them do too many stupid things. If it didn't feel like real, they let us change it. So.
Okay. From George. I never know how to pronounce his name. I'm so sorry, George. George is plural. Do many people in the States still swear that Jan 6 was a huge violent insurrection? In the Middle East, we kind of just roll our eyes and go, okay, sure.
Yeah, people that have lived through real violent insurrection.
Yeah, he's got the right idea. I'm glad that that's the perception outside of the country.
Yeah, it's only in the media. It's like it's the propaganda machine. It's the Democrat Party and their mouthpieces in the media pushing this lie that everything was violent. It's the worst thing that ever happened since the Civil War. All of that is garbage, but it's being uniformly pushed, and there's a large sector of the country that get their news from these liars, and that's how it happens.
Including from our own current president. It's truly unbelievable. Yeah, but I'm glad, that's true. Other countries that are aware of the propaganda in their media, they're aware of the corruption in their own governments. They can look at what happened here on January 6th and go, okay, yeah. We know that game.
Yeah, they long for an insurrection that peaceful in the Middle East.
Oh, Matthew, did I miss one of your super chats? I got to 2 of them. Did you send a third one? Let me look up on YouTube here. Nick, anything that surprised you about putting this documentary together?
Well, it was surprising how many people were wouldn't talk to us. They were afraid, because of might affect their court case, or they didn't trust us or whatever. And even a couple of people that we did interviews with, they called us up later and said, "Take me out."
Oh man, really?
Yeah, because they're terrified. It's like one person that we interviewed, obviously I won't say his name, but after we interviewed him, he hadn't been arrested at this point. And after we interviewed him, they arrested him. And that happened to a lot of the people in the movie. But after they arrested him, he thought it was us. He thought we were working for the bad guys. And he kind of, "Take me out. I don't want to be in your movie. You're working for the FBI," and all this kind of stuff. So it was shocking to see how afraid and how much the government's campaign of terror has actually worked and made people fearful of the government.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, comment in the chat. How can it be called an insurrection when the police held barricades open and waved people in, and also no weapons of any kind?
Yeah, I mean, we have testimony in the movie from people who said, the 2 little old ladies, the 74-year-old twin domestic terrorists, they walked into the White House. They said the police were standing right there. They said, "Do you mind if we're in here?" And they said, "No." And she said they took a few pictures and they walked around, and people were saying USA, USA, and it was exciting. They went home, and 3 weeks later, the FBI's at their door. "You entered the Capitol as a restricted area. You're going to be on a no-fly list. You're going to, all the 2 74-year-old women.
The sweetest ladies. Yeah.
Yeah, they came to the screening. We had the first screening about a week ago at a church out here in California, and they came from Miami. They flew all the way from Miami to be there.
Wow.
They are just delightful. They were so much fun.
And there still currently are a lot of people in jail over this that don't have access. I mean, is there any kind of an independent fund or a way to help these people?
I saw that Matt and Mercedes Schlapp had started one. I don't know exactly how it works, but you can probably find it with a Google search. I know that they've started one, but Julie Kelly, who appears in the movie, she's a writer at American Greatness, and she has been really the champion, the only journalist out there that's really telling the story of the people in prison and how they're being treated and the horrible conditions they're under.
What's her name?
And she's working very hard to try to get, somebody to start a fund to help these people.
Nick, what's her name?
Julie Kelly.
Okay, Julie Kelly. All right.
Julie Kelly. She writes for American Greatness, and she's very active on Twitter. If you look her up on Twitter, she's always arguing with some media hack who's talking about how, Jacob Shanley deserved those 41 months or whatever crap. That guy, he's in the movie a little bit, but we cut some of the stuff we had about him. That guy's not even really that ideological.
He's kind of like an actor, isn't he? Just like a...
He's an actor.
Yeah.
So you trust the damn thing he says just because of that. He's an actor. So, but he didn't. He went there just to kind of have fun. He's been at all these rallies. He's always in that same costume. And you can see on the footage him walking in there with a police officer that he's talking to on the way. Is it okay to go in here? And the police officer's going, yeah, just don't touch anything.
He's like a cartoon character, but everybody knows his face. He's in all the propaganda. So they go, oh, this guy got slapped with 41 months. Meanwhile, he's already been in there for like 9 or 10 months or something. So
and that's the strategy with all these plea deals they're trying to get these people to take. They get them to plead to one felony. They know they didn't do anything wrong, but they plead guilty to get them off their back. And then they walk around and go, see, we got another one. They're guilty. Look at how many guilties we've got.
It's so disgusting.
It's sick.
But it's why that this documentary is so important. And everyone check out capitalpunishmentthemovie.com. You can pre-order it today for $9.99, and it'll drop next Thursday on Thanksgiving. Gather your friends and family around and watch this together.
Right.
And watch their jaws drop.
Yeah, and then you can get in a fight with your communist relatives after the movie's over.
Nick, did you see this? Was like one of the best memes. It was like, I'm going. If you're going to like a leftist family member's place for Thanksgiving and they say not to talk about politics, just bring wine, and then the wine are like it's all Trump wine.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Like that's great.
Just start telling them you've got too much food. You need to redistribute some of that. Redistribute it.
So that's exciting. Any date on when that Prairie movie with Gina Carano is going to come out?
I suspect it'll be out early spring. I don't know, but that seems to be about the timeline. I'm sure the movie will be ready around March and April. I don't know when they'll release it, but it was so much fun and a really grueling shoot for me. I mean, it's called Terror on the Prairie, and I'm the terror.
Oh, you're the bad guy?
Yeah, so it was a lot of work. I mean, it was like running and jumping off a horse and scalping people and all kind of stuff. And it was like, I told the producer about week 3, I said, 7 years ago, I might have really enjoyed this, but I'm too old for this shit now. So.
How was it like working with Gina? Have you had met her before?
No, I didn't meet her, but she's terrific. I mean, I learned later. She kind of told me that she really kind of advocated for me to do the role, and they were trying to get guys like Mel Gibson or something, and so I kidded them. Yeah, you must have offered it to a lot of people before you got around to me.
Oh,
but
yes.
Gina was always kind of my champion, and working with her on the set, it was all the actors. I mean. One of the actors, Heath Freeman, he was one of our gang. Tyler Fisher, Heath Freeman, Gabriel Kane Day-Lewis. He's Daniel Day-Lewis's son. We were the 4 outlaws, and terribly, a week after we stopped shooting, Heath passed away.
Oh gosh!
Just a terrible, terrible blow because I love that guy, and really, I walked away from that set going, I've made permanent friends. I love these people, and they'll always be part of my life. It was a great, great experience.
Good. Yeah, it looked really special. And I was talking to Tyler Fisher. He told me that they found him. One of the producers was following him on Instagram and loved his impressions.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great. I was like,
yeah, well, that was what was funny too. Role. he said, we've got this guy in it. We've got this this other guy named Tyler Fisher. And I said, what? The guy who does Fauci? You hired that guy? It's like, I knew who Tyler was before we got there. We'd already were following each other on Twitter, so it was hilarious.
That's great. Yeah, it's great when you can make real solid friends from these projects, and it's just we're slowly kind of building a community of liberty and truth-minded people, and it's just going to continue.
Well, that's what it takes. We've got to stop being afraid of them. We've got to stop being, we better watch our mouths. We better watch what we say, or we might get canceled. The hell with them. We're going to build our own thing. We don't need them anymore.
Absolutely. Nick, is there anywhere else where people can find you and follow you and keep up with your work other than going to capitalpunishmentthemovie.com?
Right. You can follow me on Twitter at yes Nick Searcy at your own risk. It's a knife fight. My Twitter feed is just bloody and disgusting. But if you want that, come get some. And that's about it. You can always reach me if you need to email me, nick@nicksearcy.com. That gets to me. And, we're just trying to build the audience for this movie and build a platform whereby we can make other films like it and, build a new Hollywood. That's what we have to do.
Yes, building a new Hollywood. I'm here for it. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait for people to see this documentary.
Always great to see a fellow comedian. I've been doing stand-up once in a while.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I should get you on one of my shows when I'm out in California next.
I've been opening for Rodney Carrington once in a while because he and I are old friends. And I do 15, 20 minutes, and it's terrifying. Nice. But most of my jokes are about how mean my wife is. So.
That's good. That's relatable. Yeah. Nick, thanks for coming on.
Something with you. That'd be fun. Maybe you and Tyler and I could do something.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be great.
That's a great idea. We're going to work on it. Guys in the chat, thanks for the questions and comments. As always, next time. We will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.